Hello everybody, this is Avish Parashar from BeFunnyAsASpeaker.com. Today we're going to talk about voices and characters. And this is a really great and simple way to get some additional laughs and humor and draw your audience in. And that is simply when you're telling a story and at some point you'll say, oh, and then the other person said this. Don't just do it from the third person. Don't just say, oh, and then that person looked at me and said, what are you doing in my house? That's not from a real story. I don't know where that line came from, but you get the gist. Actually take on a little bit of their persona and throw on a little voice. Now, I'm not suggesting you try to put on a one-person show and do lots of crazy accents and full-on characters. Now, if you have a big acting background and that's your shtick, by all means. For the average speaker, whether it's content speaker, experiential, motivational, I'm assuming you don't have this huge performance background. And even if you do, with every technique in this video, in any video on the BeFunnyAsASpeaker.com website, you have to find out what's authentic and comfortable to you. Back in my improv comedy days, I did lots of characters, voices, accents. I used to love doing that, and really the audience loved it. I was kind of known for that, just doing all sorts of craziness. And I've never really woven that into my speaking so much because it's never felt natural for me. Now, if and when it does, I do it. I do some of the things I'm about to share with you now, though. And that is that you don't need to do this over-the-top, crazy character. Just subtle changes in your voice will get a laugh. And I don't know the psychology or the theory behind why this works. It just does. Audience laugh. For example, one time I was telling a story about sitting in the audience during a wedding. His friends were getting married. And I was talking about how the bride and groom had written their own vows. And then I talked about the bride. I'm like, oh, and the bride said something like, I never knew what true love was till I met you. Now, I have to be honest, the audience laughed at that point, and it threw me. Because that, for me, in my head, was just the setup to the next line, where the joke was coming. And after I was thinking about it, I realized it was just the little face and the little voice. By taking the voice, and I guess I'm a bigger, huskier guy, and, dark hair, and I got facial hair. And so when I put on that little lisping, like, I never knew, just made the audience laugh. And so looking back, I realized that little voices, little characterizations could go a long, long way. I didn't need to go into acting mode and go into full character. Just a little voice. Now, you can do the same thing. And if you want to get the humor, doing that kind of contrast. So if you're a guy talking a story about your wife, that's great. If you're a female talking a story about your husband, that's great. Now, one of the reasons I say your wife or husband is you have to be careful when doing characterizations that you don't offend. So for our purposes, for BeFunnyAsASpeaker.com, since we're not training you to be a stand-up comedian, I would say, unless it's your own ethnicity, or if you have a real, if your whole speech is around characters, I would avoid doing accents because that can easily and quickly be seen as offensive. All right? So if you're not Chinese, don't tell a story about interacting with a Chinese person and throw on a heavy Chinese accent to get a laugh because people will be offended by it. Now, if you are Chinese, or for me, I'm Indian, I can throw on an Indian accent, and that'll be funny because, we can make fun of ourselves. So unless you fit in one of those two categories, I would avoid doing that. Same thing. For characterization, I would stick to people who are close to you, like family, spouses, kids, that sort of thing. You can also do friends, coworkers. I would avoid doing employees. You can do superiors because we all like to make fun of our bosses. Same rules apply as to who you're going to make fun of. Because anytime you do a characterization, it can be viewed as getting humor at someone's expense. So don't do it to someone innocent or someone that you have some kind of status over because that's going to be seen as mean. But all you do is a little voice. If you're a female, you can go a little heavier with your voice. If you're a male, you can go a little lighter with your voice. Play around with it. Find out what comes natural to you. And don't worry about being 100% accurate, right? Just because you're not doing an impression here. No one knows the person who you're quoting. So you can punch it up or down a little bit. You can make the voice higher or lower. You can add a slight twang to it. You can change the cadence to add some humor. You're not being unauthentic or natural because you're not trying to do like an Oprah Winfrey or Tom Cruise impression. You're just doing a character. So don't worry so much. That's where people get in trouble with the voices. But play around with it. Contrast your physicality and your energy style with a different type of character when you're telling your story. Slip in a character just a little bit and see how you can get those laughs. All right, for more great tips, go to BeFunnyAsASpeaker.com. Once again, thank you for listening, and this is Avish Parashar, and thank you.